So you're thinking about using AI in your business, and that's great. You absolutely should be thinking about it because let's face it, AI can help you 10x your productivity, free up a ton of time for you, and also help you increase your profit in your business. But without a clear plan for how to integrate AI into your business, you risk losing a ton of time, energy, and money. I'm a 7-figure online business owner, and for the past year, I've been using AI in my business. And as a result, I've cut my work in half and my profits have increased significantly thanks to AI now handling my time-consuming busy work for me. So today, I want to share with you the simple step-by-step process that I've created to identify time-consuming and repetitive tasks in my business, bottlenecks and profit leaks, then leverage cutting-edge AI to fix them. This process will also help you find the right tools to use in the business. Like maybe you don't even need to pay for ChatGPT for what you do in your business. I call this process the APT Framework, APPTT. So let me break down this framework for you right now. Okay, so the A in our APT framework stands for assess. And what we're doing here, so if we're looking at the APT framework in sort of a pyramid standpoint, we have to start at the bottom, right? And we're working our way up in order to get to our freedom. So here we are as the business owner, and we're working towards that freedom of getting these tasks and busy work and such off our plate. So the A is for assess. So this is where we really want to look at our overall business and determine what the core workflows, the processes, the revenue streams, the customer interactions that you have or do in your business. It's best to kind of take an inventory. And I like to start with, just a brain dump of everything that you can think of that you do in the business. Everything from, this is how we acquire a customer. This is what we do when we get a customer. This is how we handle our email. This is how we do onboarding for our clients. These are our 4 revenue streams. What are they? What makes up those revenue streams? How do people pay us? This sounds like a lot. And I mean, this is really going to be dependent, right, on the size of your business. I mean, if you're a one-person show and you're keeping your business really simple, this whole process could take you like an hour. But if you're a much bigger business with a bunch of different revenue streams, a huge team, this could take you several days, if not several weeks to do. What I like to do is, and this is really especially helpful when you maybe get stuck on this step. So every business has 4 systems. 4 systems, and they are fulfillment, and I'll explain each one of these here in just a second. Fulfillment, marketing, sales, and then operations. And how I like to look at each of these 4 systems. So fulfillment, I look at fulfillment as the most important system in your business because these are your paying customers. Fulfillment simply means when somebody gives you money, what does the process look like after they give you money? So they pay you with their credit card, and then, maybe they get an email with onboarding or login instructions or next steps. And it might be, maybe it's a series of emails, right? And so the fulfillment system is essentially what happens after somebody becomes a paying customer. What are all the steps? And obviously this is going to be, dependent on what you're selling. If you're selling a membership, then that's the onboarding process, and really break down the onboarding process, meaning what emails do they get? What are we wanting them to do? How many emails, et cetera. If you sell an online course, they're probably gonna get an email letting them know of their login credentials. Maybe there's a community involved. If you're selling an actual physical product, you're letting them know about shipping and all this other stuff, right? So the fulfillment, again, I look at that system as the most important aspect of your business because they're already paying customers. So what does that system look like? Okay. Now, the next system is the marketing system. The marketing system is, you probably, are guessing what that is. This is how do we attract people to our business? Do you have a podcast? Do you have a maybe a YouTube channel? Maybe you do ads. Maybe you do guest podcasting. So basically you want to list all these things out for how you attract, maybe you have a book, how you attract people to your business. And so if you do guest podcasting, for example, cool. You hopefully have a process for how you go about getting on other podcasts. If you do your own podcast, you probably have a system or process for how you do your podcast. Okay. So you want to just basically list out what those things are. How do you attract people to your business, right? And so if you have an email list, great, I would put that down, but it's also how do you get people onto your email list? So then we have sales, and this is where, we are turning those leads, if you will, from the marketing system into paying customers. So how do you do this? What are those things that you do to turn your leads into paying customers? Maybe you do, an email funnel. Maybe you do ads to a sales page, direct to sale. Maybe you do webinars, et cetera, et cetera. Hopefully you don't have too many of these. So if you are, if you're less than $1 million in revenue, hopefully you have one marketing system, one sales system, and you've got your fulfillment system where you are keeping your customers happy. The simpler, the better. But if you have, if you're a $10 million business, you might have multiple marketing channels. The idea here, again, is just to get them down, brain dump them, and then we start to break down, okay, well, we do an email funnel. Okay, great. How do we get people into the email funnel? Thus, the marketing. Then once they're in the email funnel, how are we moving them towards a sale? These are all the systems in your business. Then the fourth system is operations. Operations are the systems and processes and the team right? My drawing of people is, unmatched. But this is, what are the systems and processes and team that we need in place to support the fulfillment, the marketing, and sales systems, right? And so usually when we are going to be implementing AI into our business, we're not starting generally with our operations, okay? Now there's things that we can do within operations, like create an SOP, for example, that AI makes super, super simple. But again, we are going to be looking for different ways. And that's what this whole framework teaches us is, where do we start implementing AI into our business? Okay. So that's the A in our APT framework, where we are assessing, taking inventory basically of everything that we do in the business. Okay. So the next letter in our APT framework is the first P. And this one stands for prioritize. So as we've done our assessment, now we want to look at everything that we've just identified in our assessment phase, and we want to prioritize which of these tasks and processes that we have just uncovered essentially would be most impactful to get off of your plate first. But here's the key. In the assess phase of the framework, we hopefully wrote down a whole bunch of things which can feel really overwhelming, right? And by the way, if you are the CEO of your business, you can have somebody on your team, maybe your right-hand person, your integrator, your operations person, they can be doing all this for you, right? And then at the end of this framework, then they're just suggesting to you the findings from their work through this, right? The key here is it can be really overwhelming when you have gone through the assessment phase and you've got a whole bunch of things, all the systems and processes that go into running your business. The key here in the prioritize stage of our framework of this process here is try not to look at everything in your business, because again, it can get really overwhelming. The idea here is to use the 80-20 principle. And if you're not familiar with the 80-20 principle, it's just basically saying that 20% of what you do accounts for 80% of the results. And so in this case here, 20% of the tasks that you do in the business very likely deliver 80% of the value from your business, right? So if you have multiple revenue streams, for example, 20% of those revenue streams take up 80%, or make up, I should say, 80% of the overall revenue in the business. So if you're doing this 80-20 exercise, you should end up with 3 to 5 of these core workflows, revenue, processes from the assess phase. Now it's not so overwhelming. You're just looking at the top 3 to 5 of these core tasks, if you will, that you do in the business that are making up 80% of the value that you deliver in the business. And as I'm determining, going through the 80-20 process here, I like to look at things that are in the business that are keeping me from focusing on my highest leverage activities as the CEO. So for example, creating this video for you. So what are the things that are going on in my business that are keeping me from delivering on and working on my highest leverage tasks? These are the things that just drain me, and it's the drudgery of that work that I just can't stand, right? Especially when things take me a long time and drain the energy out of me. Those things are going on this 3 to 5 core things that I'm identifying. They're definitely going on that list, right? Similarly, what are the things, if you have a team, what are the things that your team is working on or that your team is doing that is keeping them from doing their highest value work in their role? These are great targets for AI to automate with AI. The things that are keeping you and your team from doing your highest leverage activities in the business. These are prime targets to automate with AI. Okay, so the next P in our APT framework stands for plan. Now we're really getting into, we've done sort of the nitty gritty, if you will, of figuring out what we're going to be getting off our plates, those time consuming and repetitive tasks that are going to free up when we get AI to do these things that are going to free up our time. Now we need to plan based on what we've just uncovered in the prioritization phase of this process here. So based on what you have just prioritized, you want to use the processes for accomplishing those tasks, i.e. the SOPs. Look, I know SOPs, standard operating procedures, are a total pain in the butt to do. They don't have to be. Here's a quick little tip. Just record yourself doing whatever task that you've identified. If you don't already have an SOP for it, just record yourself with Loom to doing the task. And as you're recording yourself, you're screen sharing and recording, you're just talking through what you're doing. Then what you can do is you can take that video, you can transcribe the video using like Riverside transcription, which is totally free. Take that transcription, put it into ChatGPT and ask it to make an SOP for you out of it. And that simple process works really, really well. It can give you a very accurate SOP step by step. Boom, you've got your SOP. So now that you have identified the tasks that you want to get off your plate, you look at the SOPs for them. Now, based on the SOPs, you want to look at and create a plan of how you might apply AI to take over those tasks for you. I just gave you a perfect example of how you might use AI to create an SOP. It was a few different steps. So you could get super meta with it, right? And say, okay, here's an SOP for how to create an SOP. And you would list out the steps that you would do for how to create an SOP. Well, we just took those steps essentially and used Loom to record yourself walking through the process, get the transcription using Riverside transcription. Again, it's free. And then put that into ChatGPT and you've got the SOP. And I didn't mean to rhyme that, but now that's a process that could take you or somebody on your team an hour is now taking literally the length of time that it took you to record the video, because the other two steps take a matter of minutes. Now, the implementation on this as you plan for AI might be specific prompts for ChatGPT or Claude or what have you. It might be an automation chain in Zapier or a combination of these things, right? And so, which inevitably brings up the question of, are there specific AI or automation tools that tend to work really well for typical online business tasks? Now, I just gave you an example for creating an SOP. In a second here, I'm going to take you through, if you're an online coach, for example, or you do calls, maybe with clients that you are recording them on Zoom, and then you need to send follow-up notes. I'm going to walk you through a simple process for how we're going to take the APT framework and implement it for sending a call summary or bullet points, action items or takeaways, deliverables from a recorded meeting that you have with somebody. And we're going to automate that whole process, because that can be super time consuming, right? But we'll come to that in just a second. There are two websites that I like to refer to a lot if I'm trying to figure out what AI tool might help me accomplish, XYZ task or tasks. The first tool is called futurepedia.io. And as you can see here, it has 5,000 AI tools over 54 categories. So you can either start typing in something like transcription, and it will bring up all the tools that help with transcription. Here they are right here. Or you can search by category. So you can click on the all categories and you can look at productivity tools or video generators or whatever it is that you're looking for. So that is Futurepedia. You just type in whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish and it'll show you the tools that could help you. The other tool, or the other site I like, is Future Tools by Matt Wolf. It's very similar to Futurepedia. It has 2,500 tools, and you can either, self-select, I want to know all the marketing tools. It's a little quicker, and you click that and it shows the different marketing AI tools that you can use, or you can do the exact same thing. You can type in, SEO like it says, and it'll pull up all of the SEO tools. Now notice it is showing the number of, so it's 119 tools that are SEO related. Now you can also use this filter system here by either the newest one or the most upvoted people. You can see here with the little arrow, people upvote it. So these are some really effective tools to use if you don't know what AI tool can, best handle the task that you're looking for. Just come over to Future Tools or Futurepedia and search on whatever it is that you want to try to get off your plate, and it can be super helpful for you. So let's look at an actual business example that many online businesses experience, that we can take the APT framework here and completely automate it. And so by doing so, you are saving potentially hours each time you have a call and need to do this task. And that task is, you have a call with a client. You do a client call, or maybe it's a potential client call. From that call, it's your job as either the coach or the salesperson or whatever it might be to follow up with them via an email, or maybe you're sending them a Slack message if they're a client. But if they're a potential sales lead, then you're going to follow up with them via email, and you want to obviously directly mention and link back to essentially things that you talked about in the call. But maybe you've had 7 coaching calls today, or maybe you've had 7 sales calls today, and you're like, I don't remember what I talked about in the first call, and I need to follow up with them. So what happens is a lot of people have to go back and listen to the call, or rewatch the call, or maybe you have somebody on your team doing that for you and giving you notes or what have you. Well, this process I'm about to share with you you can automate the entire process, right? So you have your call, and most calls are done on Zoom, right? Well, there is an AI tool called Fathom, which is both free and they have a paid version. The paid version monthly, I think, is like $19 or something like that. But what Fathom allows you to do, it allows you to transcribe. It'll also, it'll summarize. It'll allow you to like highlight key points in your calls. Okay. But that's not why I like using Fathom for this. And I'll explain why here in just a second. So now we've got Fathom, and we have our call. We've got our recording of the call with Fathom. This is where we ask ChatGPT for the summary, action items, deliverables, basically anything that you want from the call. So if you are, if this was a sales call, maybe the person brought up objections on the call. Well, you can ask ChatGPT to list out objections that the person was saying, so that you can clearly address them in your follow-up email. Maybe they didn't even bring up objections. Well, you can ask ChatGPT what potential objections the person might have based on the transcription of your call, so that you could address those, get in front of them and address those in your email. So then what you can do is you can have your summary, whatever. Redo that part again. So then once ChatGPT does its thing, then you can have it sent to wherever you want. So what I like to do in my business is have this Slack to me. So I have a specific channel of coaching call, I forget what it's called, like coaching call notes or something like that. So you have a specific channel that the notes and summary and action items from ChatGPT are sent directly to Slack. And then what I can do, obviously I get the notification in Slack. And so then it's review. I'm going to do that last part again. Then once I get the notes, the next step is to review those notes, because I don't want to automatically, you could automatically send the notes that ChatGPT put together for you directly to your client, or have it generate an email follow-up. But this is where it's really important. You've got to have a human review this before anything gets sent out externally. So this is where I'm looking in Slack. I get the message with the summary. I want to review it. And this is where you can either write your email at this point based on all the notes that ChatGPT just put together for you, and summary and all that stuff. So review, and then email or Slack or however you communicate with your client. Maybe you communicate with them on Voxer or WhatsApp or what have you. Well, once you've edited, if necessary, the review that ChatGPT did for you, then you can send it over to them however you communicate with them. So, or now this is getting a little bit more advanced here. If you are going to use this summary to write a follow-up email for you, you could come back to sending the edited review and send it back to ChatGPT to write the email for you. Now, that is getting a lot more advanced, but that's absolutely possible and really isn't that hard to do. Now, you might be asking, well, Rick, how do I do all of this stuff? And the tool that I use to do these things in my business is Zapier. And I want to show you an example of what this simple workflow can look like over inside of Zapier. Inside of Zapier, this automation looks like this. It's 3 steps. So you create a new Zap. The trigger is exactly what it says here. Get new meeting transcription from Fathom. So as I mentioned, Fathom is attached, if you will, to your Zoom. When your call is done, Fathom finishes the transcription and it will live, the transcription is living inside of Fathom. So you basically just connect your Fathom account to Zapier. Now, just a key point here, you do need to pay, I think it's the pro version of Fathom, in order to connect the API, basically connect Zapier to Fathom. I think it's like $18 a month. So that is the first step. The second step, as you can see here, send the transcription to ChatGPT for summarization. So in the first step, it's grabbing the transcription. The second step, it's sending that transcription over to ChatGPT. And this is where the meat, if you will, is of the automation. And this is where you're going to have to do the most testing. So once you've connected your ChatGPT to Zapier, you want to click on the event. You're choosing a conversation. This is how you would, this is a chat basically. Choose conversation, come down to your account, make sure that you are connected to the right account here in ChatGPT or here in Zapier. And then this is where you want to set things up, right? And by set things up, this is where you are putting your prompt in to summarize the transcription, tell ChatGPT that you want, a list of action items, a list of deliverables, or, the objections that were made in the call, what have you. And so just a couple of tips here. So for the user message, what I would do, so these fields here are where you are telling ChatGPT what you want it to do. This is where you're choosing the ChatGPT model. So as you can see here, for me, it's defaulting to 3.5 turbo. But I might choose ChatGPT 4, for example. And then you want to scroll down here. The assistant name, you can just leave it assistant. For the assistant instructions here, this is the prompt. This is where you're telling it what you want it to do, meaning I want you to summarize, include bullet points of action items, deliverables. This is probably the most important part of your entire automation, because ChatGPT is taking that transcript and doing the summary for you and including in that summary whatever it is that you want to do, like the bullet point, the action items, potential objections or actual objections from the call, etc. So I would do the temperature, by the way. It's between 0 and 2. The lower the number, the more actual accuracy that it's having. Like it is what it's not making anything up or being creative in any way. I would set the temperature to 0. And then for the user message, again, for this example here, I didn't connect Fathom, but you can tell ChatGPT how you want it to act, meaning like you are a world-class assistant. And then down here in the assistant instructions, this is what you're telling it actually what you want it to do. And again, once it has done that summary, it's going to send the summary to Slack, and it's going to send it to a channel that you designate. And so once you have this all set up, you are testing this Zap. And this is where you are determining, am I getting the right kind of output in that summary that I want? If you're not, you're coming back to this second step here where you're setting the transcription of ChatGPT and you are editing and improving the prompt that you're using for ChatGPT. So we have literally if you were to do this whole process on your own, right? So you have your client call, the Zoom recording, then if you're going to go back and review it, watch it again, take notes on it, depending on how long the call is, I mean, this could take you several hours to do. This process right here, all you have to do, and you're also going to be a lot more present on your call, whether it's a sales call or a coaching call, you're going to be way more present because you're not frantically writing notes or typing notes or anything like that. You are fully present, and the AI and the automation is doing all of the heavy lifting for you after the call. So this whole process here is completely automated and is going to happen in like 5 minutes, if that. I mean, I would say not even that. So you hang up on your call and this automation starts, and you're going to have a message within Slack in a matter of probably 2 minutes. Then you review it. If it's good, then you get to send it out, or you could add an extra step inside of Zapier using ChatGPT to write the actual sales email follow-up to your potential client. So we've just taken a process that is really tedious, takes a long time, is taking us away from the most important activities in our business, i.e. actually getting on a call with our coaching clients or sales prospects, and allowing us and freeing up a ton of time for us to be able to spend our time on those most important things. Okay, the next letter in our APT framework is the first T. And this is where we want to test. We're getting a lot closer to that freedom point at the top of our pyramid. So this is where we want to test, right? So we want to test our implementation of this whole process, for example, to see how well it actually completed the task that we want, right? And identify areas for improvement. So for example, maybe the breakdown here is in, ChatGPT. Maybe it's like, this is the breakdown, and the summary, the action items, deliverables the prompt that you've set up inside of Zapier with ChatGPT needs to be improved. Okay, well, you have to test it out in order to see the results, and that way you can go back and make changes to it accordingly. Now, the idea here in the test phase is to continuously track the performance of this AIification, as I like to call it, of the different systems that you are applying AI to. So again, in this process here, we are continually tracking the performance of this process here that we've put together. And we're looking at the impact that it has on the business. So as I mentioned in the previous step there, this whole process, if you did it manually, maybe it takes you 2 hours. And then with the automation that we've created here, maybe it gets down to 5 minutes. Well, that's huge time savings, obviously, right? And so the idea here is to collect the data as you are doing this and seeing the type of impact that it has on your business. Because if you saved yourself almost 2 hours of time, that frees up 2 hours. That's a lot of time to be freeing up. And so now you can analyze the results and make informed decisions and improvements based on what you have created. And the idea here is to continue to refine the system as you measure its, impact that it's having for you on the business and its effectiveness. So going back to that system, maybe going back to what I was talking about, going back to that system and re-mentioning, so maybe in this part of the process right here, where you are sending an email to your, if you're doing sales calls, well, maybe you're like, oh, this process is really good. It saved me a bunch of time, but I would love it if ChatGPT could actually create the sales follow-up email for me based on the summary and action items and objections and everything that ChatGPT created in this step up here. And you're like, oh, that could save me an additional 30 minutes of writing, however long it takes to write an email. So that's something that you're like, all right, I can make an improvement there, and it would have much greater impact and effectiveness on this entire process and the overall business, and free up even more of my time. So the idea here is to look at the functionality of this new system, this new process that you've created that is now automation and AI. And does the automation work as intended from, point A to point B? Does it work? Yes. Great. We can continue to monitor and, again, as necessary, improve, or we can move on to the next step, which we'll talk about here in a second. The other thing too is, like we talked about before, are the results that are coming into the Slack channel, are they accurate? Are they usable? And make changes accordingly. I would recommend doing this, if you're doing this process right here for sales calls or client calls, I would probably do this for a week's worth of calls. And that means you are running this system, measuring the effectiveness of it, how accurate are things, and you're really giving it ample time. Now, if you only have like one call a week, you're probably you want to give it more time than that. But if you're having several calls a day, or maybe several calls in a week, give it ample time to do a really solid test on it, okay? And before you roll this process or this new automation out to your team, or maybe this is a client-facing automation that you are that you're doing, before making it, external to any clients or even rolling it out to your team if you have one, I would give it a solid month of implementation, testing, looking at seeing where improvements can be made and the effectiveness of the outputs before, doing any kind of rollout. Now, just because you roll it out to your team or you make it client facing doesn't mean you stop testing. You're always wanting to implement some form of checkpoint, if you will, to see how well it's performing, right? Because as an example, new models, for example, of ChatGPT come out. So maybe the prompt that you created isn't as effective as it once was. So you want to make sure that you're monitoring it on a regular basis. And I say regular basis, every couple of weeks, to make sure that the output is still impactful and accurate and effective for you. Okay, we've reached the last T in our APT framework, and this is where we teach to our team. This is where we're getting this automation that we've built off of our plate, that the team is actually running this process for you, okay? The idea here is that your team should understand how the AI tools work and the automation. So maybe that is, they would want to understand, for example, Fathom. They want to understand ChatGPT and the prompt that you've created inside of ChatGPT. They want to understand Zapier and how the whole automation is set up. The team needs to be aware of these things so that they can be monitoring the automation as you go, and then making adjustments accordingly based on knowing what, how this is actually working. And we do this by providing them training and resources to ensure their proficiency. Now, when I'm training somebody on my team, I kind of like to follow another process here. And so the first step in training that I like to follow with my team is to do that screen share, or do the screen recording that I was talking about before. So as I'm going through a process, i.e. how I take a transcription from a video, or I'm going to start that, the first step in this. And the first step in how I like to train people on my team is to record that Loom video of me doing the task, whatever it is. So in this case here, I am recording a Loom video of the entire process that we've set up inside of Zapier. And I'm just going through it step by step. Remember, the key here too is to talk through as you are recording it. Then the second step, once you've got your Loom recording of the process and with the explanation, is to get on a call, get on Zoom with your team member or team members, and then take them through that Loom. So you're getting pretty meta here, but explain the Loom explainer video. So you're showing them the video. Then you've got a choice here. This is where you can have them talk you through the process right on the call. So they're basically showing they understand what you've just shown them. Or you can just simply show them how things are set up and how to measure its effectiveness. That's really, really key here in this test phase of the APT framework. Okay. Then after the call, you want them to do it themselves. So the idea with this here is basically after the call, you want them to go into Zapier, for example, and talk you through how things are set up and how to measure the effectiveness of that automation. Okay. So they're recording themselves now of talking through the automation that has been sent up. So what you're doing here with this multiple step process is you are ensuring that they're fully understanding what they need to do in their role, and they're understanding the context of what it is that they're doing, right? So they're looking at this automation, why it's important, how it works, how to measure the effectiveness, and you're doing it in multiple steps. So it's repetitive for them, and hopefully they're learning through this repetition. So they do it themselves. They report back to you with any questions. Hopefully they're also recording or sending back that Loom video to you for you to review it. And then you give feedback if necessary. If there's no feedback given, they're now doing it themselves. So this is a tedious process for teaching your team. However, it's the whole idea of do the work up front first. That's the time consuming stuff, like everything that we're looking at here. And once you get it off your plate, now we've reached the top of our pyramid where we have our freedom, right? We have successfully implemented an automation and using AI to get something off of our plate. And now that we've successfully gotten a whole core process or core, task off of our plate, we've automated, we've used AI in the process, we've tested it, we've now taught it to our team or somebody on our team, and they are now owning that process. The idea here is to continue to repeat this APT framework in our business and go through each of that, the 3 to 5 things that we identified in the prioritization phase to continue getting things off of our plate, to free up more of our time so that we can be spending our time on, higher leverage activities, spending time with our family, spending time, actually, whatever it is that you want to do. The idea is to continue this APT framework throughout your business. And it's this framework that gives you the holistic approach for understanding where opportunities exist in your business, for strategic planning, for careful implementation, and enhancing efficiency and workflows in your business through AI. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this content, then I want to invite you to subscribe to the channel, give it that thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next video.